Hello and welcome to my creative castle. Hi, my name's May. I love yarn. I love knitting and crochet. Those are my hobbies, and I also happen to have been born visually impaired, legally blind, completely colorblind. So I knit and crochet by feel. And today we got our malabrigo rios in the color ravelry red. Oh my goodness, this is gorgeous. So today I thought we would do another when you don't have a Swift videos, right? We got this hank of yarn, and what I talk about, right, is that, you know, when I first started buying yarn, I had no idea what to do with these hanks of yarn. I really didn't. I was like, what? I bought yarn in the store at Walmart. It always came in this skein, and now I just ordered yarn off the internet, and suddenly it came in this weird hank, and I don't know what to do with it, right? And so, you know, I've made these before. Both of my previous videos were crooked. Not gonna lie, I am visually impaired. If you're a returning viewer, you know that I struggle to get all of the, I think we got one more tie on here. I struggle to get all of the visual aspects right of this whole recording thing, right? This whole doing video stuff. It's a struggle for me. But you know what? It's not perfect, right? I'm sure some people see my videos and they can't even watch them because the visual aspects for some people are just, too much. And that's okay. I'm not for everybody. That's totally okay. But I thought we'd do another when you don't have a Swift videos, right? So here we got our Ravelry red. Look at that. It's gorgeous. Now, of course, I get like why they might send this stuff in hanks, because it's, it's pretty, right? We like to see all this gorgeous. I just lost the ends, y'all. I lost the ends. Oh my goodness. Okay. Like, we like to see all this gorgeousness. And of course, if you have a Swift, right, or if you have a ball winder or something, and you can make, when you have a ball winder, you can make a beautiful yarn cake, right? But not everybody has that. And so I actually hope you can see this. I don't even know if I'm on camera right now. I don't. Yeah, so I hope that you can. So I didn't have a Swift for years and years and years. I didn't have a Swift, and I didn't have a ball winder. And guess what? I still don't have a ball winder. I don't. So I don't have all the expensive toys and accessories and tools. And I know that not everybody does. Oh my gosh, we might be having lighting issues again. I don't know. Should I try pulling the drapes again? Okay, hang on. We'll try pulling the drapes again. Is that better? I don't know. It might be too dark for you to see. I don't know. Anyways, so, not everybody can afford. Maybe I should pull it back now so you can have a little bit of natural sunlight. Yeah. My goodness, what a mess this video is. I wish I could edit visually, but you know what? I can't. Okay? And now, oh my gosh, me trying to fix the drapes, I got my yarn that I'm working with tangled with another skein of yarn. Wow, this whole video should be like a bloopers video at this point, right? But anyways, I still don't have a ball winder. And so, I get that not everybody can afford a ball winder and a Swift, right? And so, sometimes we're just lucky if we can afford yarn, and we can afford needles, and we can afford hooks, and we can afford food, right? And so I like to share this method with people every now and then of how I unhank my yarn. I just use what I got, right? I use my knees. So here we are. I just sit cross-legged. I was going to sit cross-legged, but, I didn't know if you could see me or not when I was sitting cross-legged. So I got my knees up, and I just draped my hank of yarn around my knees, and Then I start with the tail on my hand along my index and middle finger, and I just start making a ball of yarn, and then I just use my knees, I use my body, and I unhank it and wind it up into a ball. And I'll be the first to tell you, my ball of yarn, it's not as pretty. Okay, it's not as pretty as the cakes that you get with the Swift and a ball winder. It just isn't. But it works, right? It works. It gets my yarn in a usable form, because let me tell you, don't try to knit or crochet with your yarn when it's still in the hank form. Don't. It doesn't work out well. It tangles, and then your yarn is ruined, and your project is ruined. I've tried it, okay? Let me tell you, that's how I know. I'm like, maybe I can just work with it like that. You can't. It's not a good idea. So, you know, wind it up into a cake or a ball or something. It'll help significantly. So this is what I do, and I still don't have a ball winder, and I look at ball winders, and ball winders are on sale right now at, yeah, you know, so I see them, I check them out at Knit Picks, I check them out on the Amazon, I check them out at all the different places. I'm like, that's an interesting ball winder, that's it, but I never get one, and so I just like, I'm like, you know what, I got knees, so that's what I'm doing today. I really wanted to play with my Ravelry Red, my Malabrigo Rios, because it is so soft, it's so squishy, right? And I really want to work with it. I'm thinking more and more about making a sweater for this fall out of it. And I'm going to be one step closer to picking it up and working with it, right? If I get it out of hank form and get it into some form that I can use. So I was like, let's do that together. Let's look at the Ravelry Red. Let's see how pretty it is, right? And help me. You guys can hang out with me and keep me company. And of course, I say in all of my videos, like, I totally recognize as somebody with a disability, right? I get that we don't all have the same abilities. We're all different. And so I get that this method is not going to work for everybody, right? You might have, you know, significant arthritis or something where you can't bend and you can't sit like this. You might not have knees, right? You might be an amputee. I talk about my friend Ray all the time. Whenever I make one, I always remember him because he was an amputee. He was missing one of his legs from just below the knee. So, you know, he was in a power wheelchair, and he would not have been able to do this because where the yarn needs to go on your leg, you know, it wouldn't have worked out, at least not like this. I'm not saying he wouldn't have found a way to do something like this, right? He may have. He's passed away now, but he may have found a way to do it. He was a pretty smart man, pretty intelligent, pretty like, you know, somebody with a disability, we always have to be creative and innovative and find ways to do things, and he certainly was. But I thought I'd talk about him a little bit with you all. He was a diabetic, and that's why he lost his leg. And I know that, you know, if you're a diabetic, you know, right? You know, but if, you know, if you're on that edge of like being a diabetic, take care of yourself before you become a diabetic, okay? Because he was a diabetic, and I know if you're a diabetic, you're probably scared of all the, you know how real it is, right? To have your blood sugar get really low and your blood sugar get high, and you know how you have to constantly check it multiple times a day and monitor your food and take meds and what you're eating. And I'm just gonna tell you, that'd be a challenge for me. You know, I admire people who are diabetics who can really stick to that diet and that health, because I do have a sweet tooth. I love my sweets, okay? I love my cookies and my cakes and all those things. And so, you know, yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be hard. So you have my sympathies if you're diabetic, but also, you know, stick to it when you can. I know it's hard, but he lost his foot and his leg, the majority of the, pretty much the lower half of one leg, because of his diabetes. He did not, if you're diabetic, you know, or you know somebody who is, you know, that neuropathy is a real thing that people deal with when they're diabetic. And so he didn't pay attention. He didn't take good care of his health. He was diabetic, and he continued to, you know, eat poorly, and not pay attention to the neuropathy, and not pay attention to sort of the signs that, you know, was, his body was telling him, and he'll be the first to tell you, he got well, he would have been, he's passed away, but he got gangrene on his foot, and that's from the neuropathy. He lost circulation in his foot and in his toes, and he lost circulation, and then he got gangrene in his toes and in his foot, and it spread and it spread and it spread to where he was in the hospital. At that point, it was too late for him. He was in the hospital and he had really bad gangrene, and they tried, very hard to treat the infection, right? And at least save his foot or part of his leg. And they did save it from just below the knee up, but that could have spread, but that ended up being the only way, to save him, right? To save him from that infection was to amputate, a significant portion of the lower half of one of his legs. And so, I just want to say that out there. If you're diabetic, diabetes is serious. So if you're having health issues, right, and you've got like the warning signs, a lot of people know that they're like pre-diabetic. Like they go to the doctor and they get their blood work and they're pre-diabetic and they know it, but they don't pay attention. I know that's something that he'd want me to say to people, is like, pay attention, because by the time that he took it seriously, he was like, it was too late to save his leg. And he talked to me about how, his time in the hospital and going through all the treatments and having to go through the surgery at that point, and it, it changed his life, significantly. Obviously he wasn't able to do, the careers that he'd previously done and the work that he did, and just changed his life dramatically. Obviously, he then was spent his life in a motorized wheelchair and, lived differently. And he, continued to carry on with his life, but it took that happening to him for him to take his diabetes and his health, really seriously. And then he did change the way that he ate. And he really was so very good and vigilant about not having sweets after that, and not having ice cream and sugar and that kind of thing. But if you want to hear a funny story about him, because I do have a sweet tooth, okay? And so when I lived in Portland, when I knew him, and there were Ben and Jerry's, the ice cream stores that you could go to, and you could go in there and you could get ice cream, and I loved them. There were two. When I lived downtown in the Pearl, there were two that I could walk to. I could walk to two Ben and Jerry's. And so every year in the spring, I think it's about April or May or something in the spring, Ben and Jerry's does what's called Free Cone Day, right? Where you can go and get a free Ben and Jerry's ice cream cone. And so I used to do that with one of my exes when I was dating this guy for a few years. And he and I used to always hit up Free Cone Day because we both loved the ice cream. Well, I broke up with him and I left him. So, and then I was friends with my friend Ray, and I'd tell him about Free Cone Day, right? And I really wanted Free Cone Day. And he was like, and the lines for Free Cone Day are long, right? People line up outside around the block to get their free ice cream. And so, he couldn't have the free cone because he was so diabetic. But he's like, I'll go with you. I'll wait in line with you, and then I'll give you mine. I'm like, ooh, yeah, right. Well, I had a guide dog too. I had this beautiful, beautiful sable German Shepherd, Rosie, right? And just a total glutton. Once I get my free cone, I've got my free cone, and I'm like trying to work her, which you're not even supposed to do, okay? You're not supposed to work your guide dog with an ice cream cone in one hand. And Ray's got his free ice cream that he got from me that he can't touch. And he's like, it's melting and I can't touch this. He's like, I can't lick this off of my hands even. And it's melting. He's like, it's melting on me. I can't lick it off my hands because I'm that diabetic. Like, I'm not losing my other leg for your ice cream. And he's like, you have to take this and, eat them both at once. And so then I had to drop my guide dog's harness handle, which you're not supposed to do, and work, right? And so I just draped her leash like a guide dog worked for the harness in your left hand. And then you got like the leash that you tuck in between your fingers. And if you need it, you can pull it out, and use it with your right hand. So, So I put the harness down, and then I like got the leash draped around my arm, and I'm wandering around downtown Portland, double fisted, ice cream cone in each hand, juggling them, trying to eat off them both, trying to keep them from melting. And at that point, my guide dog Rosie was like, oh, I'm not responsible for this. I'm not working anymore if you're not holding on to my harness. And she just started doing what dogs do, right? So she's like sniffing at stuff and looking at trees, right? And wanting to read the doggy pee mail, right? Smell the trees and be like, who is here? Who is here? And so there's Ray cruising next to me in his wheelchair, and he's like, right, stop, because he knew I was just gonna like plow into a tree or something, you know, because my guide dog was no longer working. And I was just wandering around like a complete glutton with ice cream in each hand. Yeah, he totally enabled that to happen. So anyway, but that's how serious he took his diabetes once he lost a leg. He was like, I'm not losing a leg for your ice cream, right? And that's how silly and goofy I was, that I would think that for some reason that I could wander around downtown Portland with, you know, just my guide dog's leash looped around my arm and think somehow she was still going to pay attention and not crash me into trees. And she was too smart for that. So he had to like cruise next to me in his wheelchair and was like yelling directions at me, you know, which way to go and to stop. And finally we're like, maybe we should do the responsible thing, right? And like pull over, because there's, you know, at Cone Day, you're not going to get a table at, you know, at Ben and Jerry's. There's very few tables in there anyway in the downtown locations, and they're packed on Free Cone Day. They are. The whole place is packed on Free Cone Day. So we had to get away from the Ben and Jerry's a little bit and find us a little place to sit, you know, downtown, where this little piggy right here, this little glutton right here, could sit down with her 2 ice cream cones and eat them both at once before they melted. Yeah, that was me. So anyways, so whenever I do this though, whenever I wind my yarn like this, and think about, you know, the fact that it always reminds me of Ray. Every time that I do this, I'm reminded to be grateful, right? To be grateful that I have 2 knees, right? That I have 2 legs, that I have 2 knees, and I'm not, you know, I'm not saying like, oh, if you don't, you know, I'm not like saying there's anything less about anybody if you're missing, if you're an amputee and you don't have a body part and whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, and likely if you are, you find ways, other ways to do things, right? You adapt, like most of us who have disabilities. We just adapt in life. And oh my goodness, my yarn is getting tangled. Y'all, it's getting tangled here at the end. That doesn't surprise me at all. Not at all. My yarn's getting tangled. I might have to, might not be successful in unwinding this particular skein on camera. Oh my goodness. We might not be able to finish our malabrigo ravelry red here because it might be too big of a tangled mess, honestly, for me to deal with on camera. So we do not want to get knots, right? We don't want no knots in our malabrigo rios, right? This yarn is way too nice and way too expensive, right, to tangle. We don't want to do that. We don't want to lose our yarn. We don't want to have to cut our malabrigo if possible, right? We don't want to do that. So I should have been paying more attention to my yarn. That's the one thing. I like doing these with y'all and talking, but I don't want it to get too long either, right? While I'm sitting here fighting with knots. We don't want to do that. You don't want to watch me fight with a knot all day. So, if I can't get this untangled in a minute, I might have to go and finish with my yarn. We'll see. I might have got it. and finish winding my yarn by myself. I just thought it'd be fun to have. Oh, I did it, y'all. I did it. I did it. I did it. I got my yarn untangled. Woo! I was close. I thought we were going to have to go. I'm like, you don't want to sit here and watch me deal with a big pile of knots. So anyway, that can happen. That can happen. That's the one thing about doing your yarn this way is you can, if you're not careful, if you're like blah, 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 and you're talking about, you know, your poor diet habits and your ice cream eating habits and you're not paying attention to your yarn, that can happen. But anyway, every time that I do this, I think of Ray, and I think I always will, right? And I'll always be like, you know, grateful that I got my 2 knees, that I can do this. Even though I know he would have found ways to do things in life. It just reminds me, you know, to never take even the simplest things in life, right, for granted. That I got 2 knees, that I'm not diabetic, and it reminds me to take care of myself, and it reminds me to say to all of you, take care of you, right? Take your health seriously. We did it, y'all. We did it. We did it. We did it. I think now you probably do need more light. Let's see, I don't know. Okay, so here's our malabrigo. Here's our Ravelry red, right? We took it from Hank into Ball, okay? So now it's usable. We can make a sweater. Is that what I'm going to do next? I don't know yet. I'm not sure if we're going to make a sweater. We might not. We might make a dress, right? It might be too warm still for me to get in the mood to make a sweater. But I want it closer. I want the yarn usable, right? In a usable state so that we can get closer to being able to work with it. So I'm not positive it's going to be the next thing on the needle. I might get distracted by something else pretty, right? Because that's what I do. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. I want to make that next, right? So no promises that you're going to see this on the needles anytime soon. But at least if I do get like the idea and the urge to cast it on, we'll have one ready. Okay, my friends. Well, until next time, who knows what we'll be doing next. Maybe we'll be stitching. Maybe we'll be crocheting. Maybe we'll be knitting. Maybe we'll be just, you know, making a yarn ball. I don't know. All right. Well, until next time, happy stitching. Bye-bye for now.